Welcome to another video. Let's review the replay and talk about some of the most interesting athletes going into the 2025 World Championship. From Noah Lyles being one of two athletes in the history of the 200 meters to get back-to-back consecutive World Championship medal in the 200 meters. Yes, Noah Lyles, 3 consecutive World Championship 200 meter gold medals. The only other athlete to do it was Usain Bolt, who had 4 consecutive World Championship 200 meter medals, as well as Alyssa Felix, the lone female athlete to have accomplished such a feat. Kishane Thompson, another one of those extremely interesting athletes going into the World Championship, and guess what? He's in a collision course with the likes of, you guessed it, Noah Lyles, Oblique Civil, and others, including Kenny Benerick. There's a few others, but let's talk about the most interesting. We're talking about Noah Lyles being among the most interesting. Kishane Thompson with a time of 9.75. The only athlete in a decade to have run such a fast time. Another very interesting athlete. We have Mclaghlin Lavrone. Mclaghlin going into the World Championship for the first time, deciding that she would be competing in the 400 meters, flat 400 meters, after breaking the 400 meter hurdle world record for the better part of 5 years, breaking it 5 times. I think now she's making it a little bit more interesting and taking on a different challenge, running that flat 400 meters, where she would get some competition from the likes of Paulino and Nassar and Wells. I'm sure there will be others coming out of the woodwork, but it would be interesting and very interesting and intriguing to see what Mclaghlin will lay down out there on the track. I want to say Melissa Jefferson and Julian Alfred, those are 2 extremely interesting athletes going into the World Championship, because they have been running extremely good times and looking a lot different from how they had looked previously. Oblique Civil, one of those other interesting athletes, running a very good time, beating Noah Lyles in the recently concluded race at the London Diamond League. And yes, I'm gonna top it off with 2 more. Let's talk about Leslie Tobogo, interesting athlete, because he posed the challenge in that 200 meters for Noah Lyles. And we also have Brian Lavelle. He injected himself in the conversation with an extremely fast time in the 100 meters, and he will be competing in the 200 meters. So we can assume that based on the speed that he has been developing over the months, over the years, he should be a very interesting athlete going into this World Championship. So let's take it from the top now. Noah Lyles, the lone athlete in the World Championship at this point who already completed 3 consecutive 200 meter World Championship gold medals. He is the only athlete behind Usain Bolt, and currently he's in a good position to get into that only athlete, to take Usain Bolt out of that only athlete category. Usain Bolt, the only athlete to get 4 consecutive 200 meter World Championship gold medals, the only athlete to do it. Now, if Noah Lyles is able to achieve such a feat, he's in that same category as Usain Bolt. So whenever you say Usain Bolt, you have to say Noah Lyles when it comes to the 200 meter at the World Championship, the amount of consecutive gold medals they had achieved. Noah Lyles also have an opportunity to defend himself in the 100 meters at the World Championship in Tokyo. That is a very interesting athlete going into the World Championship, considering to be the fastest man alive, based on the fact that he was able to edge a victory over Kishane Thompson at the Olympics with 0.005 of a second. Kishane Thompson going into that one as the fastest man in terms of time for 2024, and Noah Lyles found a way to defeat him on paper. Interesting, very interesting. But as I said before, the second most interesting athlete in my book going into the World Championship would be Kishane Thompson. Kishane Thompson, the only athlete, or the lone athlete, to have run 9.75 in a decade, must be one of the most interesting athletes going into the World Championship. We had seen him sequentially lowered his time and successfully forced himself into the conversation as the fastest athlete of 2025. A 9.75 time at the Jamaica trials, we saw Kishane Thompson forced himself to the top of the conversation, while Noah Lyles started his season very early and took a hiatus and then came back, and you know, his name is out there and his accolades is out there on the track and on paper. Kishane Thompson is building that legacy, that name for himself. And let's talk about Sydney McLaughlin. Sydney McLaughlin lowering the 400-meter hurdle world record 5 times, breaking it 5 times in 4 to 5 years, and now taking on that 400-meter flat 400-meter. I'm sure that she's confident that she's at the spot that she needs to be in order to start racing that flat 400, being the second fastest American over the 400 meters in, I think, of all time. She's very confident at this point, so it's a very interesting athlete, having the world record over and over, and that race is for her. It's like a gold medal that is just sitting there, and she's choosing a different gold medal. Just think about how interesting that is. Sydney McLaughlin choosing to chase that 400-meter gold medal versus going to collect that 400-meter hurdle gold medal, right? Melissa Jefferson and Julian Alfred, I want to put them in the same category at this point, because those two athletes are extremely interesting going into the World Championship. Julian Alfred just ran a world lead in the 200 meters, a national record, and a personal best. So she's getting faster as the season progresses. We only have 4 Diamond Leagues to go, and then we'll have the World Championship. Julian Alfred she got beat by Melissa Jefferson just a week before at the Prefontaine, the Oregon Diamond League, and she went back to the drawing board and came back with a personal best. Therefore, this athlete are just progressing as the season go on, progressing quickly. I want to say slowly, but they're progressing quickly because they're doing personal best. Julian Alfred is the 100-meter gold medalist at the Olympics, and the 200-meter silver medalist. And at this point, Julian Alfred is on a collision course with a 100-meter and a 200-meter double. A 100-meter and a 200-meter gold medal at the World Championship. The only athletes to pose any kind of threat are the athletes that are going to just surprise her. Like the Shericka Jackson. We know the legacy, the history of Shericka Jackson. She would be the only athlete to surprise her. Maybe Gabby Thomas, maybe Melissa Jefferson in the 100, maybe. But it's for Julian Alfred to lose. And as I said before, let's talk about the honorary mention in the Letsile Tubogo. We haven't really seen exactly where he is in 2025, but we know what he's capable of and what we saw from him in 2024. Let's hope that legacy continues. Let's hope that that form continues into 2025, because I'm sure Noah Lyles have a point to prove, and he want to put his name right there next to Usain Bolt, in that only 2 athletes, instead of only Usain Bolt, only 2 athletes were ever able to get that 4 consecutive 200 meters. And again, with Noah Lyles being at the age where he could chase a 5th. And then let's talk about Brian Lavelle, another interesting athlete. He's just making the name for himself, but running a time of 9.82, becoming one of Jamaica's top 10 fastest athlete of all time, and 2025 second fastest athlete so far. Very interesting athlete going into the World Championship. There is a lot that could be said about him and a lot more athletes, but I'm going to leave it right there. And I want to hear from you guys. Review the replay. Review the replay before the race even begin. And the races that already passed, we can talk about those as well. Drop your comments down below. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.